Think about it. The materials all around us, well, they're getting smarter every day.
Mhm.
Your phone, your fridge,
Oh,
even the surfaces we touch are becoming more intelligent. We're talking about smart coatings.
exactly. These aren't just, paints for protection or looks. Smart coatings can actually sense what's going on around them, moisture, temperature, even bacteria.
And they react.
And they react, yes, in a helpful way. It's like giving everyday things their own little sensory system.
And that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We've got this recent report looking at the global market for these, well, really clever materials, where it is now, where it's heading.
It's a fascinating field, and the report puts the market size at USD 361.5 million for 2025. Pretty substantial.
Okay, over 3.3 billion.
Yeah.
But it's the growth that's really interesting, right?
Absolutely. It's projected to hit almost $5 billion, USD 966.4 million to be precise, by 2033. And that growth seems to be really driven by, the big push for sustainability and stricter environmental rules.
All right, those factors are huge now. So that translates to what, about a 5% growth rate each year?
Yeah, a compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, of 5.00% between 2025 and 2033. It shows real momentum.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is basically to get under the hood of this market. What are the key trends? Who's driving it regionally? What innovations are making these coatings tick?
That's the plan. In this report, it uses 2024 as the base year, looks back a few years to 2021 for historical context, gives the estimate for 2025.
Which you just mentioned.
Right, and then forecasts all the way out to 2033. So it gives a really solid timeline.
Okay, so we've got the big picture, size, growth direction. Let's break it down geographically. Where's the biggest chunk of this market right now?
Right now, North America is definitely leading the pack. It holds over 40% of the global market share in 2025.
40%. That's significant.
It is. That translates to about 1.24 billion US dollars.
Wow. And what's behind that dominance over there?
Well, the US is the biggest single market within North America, but interestingly, Canada is actually growing the fastest in that region.
Oh,
A lot of it comes down to, again, those environmental regulations pushing for better, smarter materials. Plus, there's significant R&D funding from the US military.
the military angle. That makes sense for advanced materials like these, protecting equipment in harsh conditions.
Precisely. It's a key driver for innovation there.
Okay, what about Europe? They're often big on green tech.
Europe's a major player, too. They account for over 30% of the market in 2025, so that's around $975 million.
And growing steadily.
Yeah, solid 4.1% CAGR projected. The UK is showing particularly strong growth thanks to activity in construction, automotive, and aerospace.
Okay.
And Germany, well, they're really focused on eco-innovation and coatings, which fits right in.
Right, so the established industrial regions are strong, but what about Asia-Pacific? With all the manufacturing there?
Exactly. APAC holds about 23% share, currently roughly $807 million in 2025. But, and this is the key thing, it's the fastest growing region by a significant margin.
How fast are we talking?
We're looking at a 7.7% annual growth rate.
Wow, that's impressive. What's fueling that?
It's largely the boom in automotive production. Think Malaysia, Indonesia, China, India.
Right, those emerging powerhouses.
Yes. Plus, there's strong demand in electronics, construction, and even military sectors across Asia-Pacific.
That rapid growth really tracks with broader global manufacturing shifts.
Yeah.
Okay, how about the other regions? South America, Middle East, Africa. Are they on the map here?
They are, though, with smaller shares currently, but they're definitely showing potential. South America has over 5% share, growing at 5.7% annually. Brazil's tech innovation and infrastructure work is a big part of that.
Okay.
The Middle East is around 2% share, but growing quite fast at 6.3%. Qatar's automotive investments, especially in EVs, are contributing there.
Interesting link to EVs.
Yeah.
And Africa.
Yeah. Africa holds about 1% share, growing at 5.3%. Nigeria's industrial sector growth is a factor there.
So summing up the regions, North America and Europe lead for now, but Asia-Pacific is the one really accelerating. And other regions are definitely joining the party.
Got it. Let's shift gears to the coatings themselves. What are the main types of smart coatings we're seeing?
The report breaks it down into several categories. You've got self-healing, self-cleaning, anti-microbial, anti-corrosion, self-dimming, and then a general others bucket.
That's quite a range of capabilities. Which one is the biggest slice of the pie right now in 2025?
Anti-corrosion. It's a dominant segment currently.
That makes intuitive sense. Rust prevention is pretty fundamental.
Absolutely. Think about oil and gas, marine applications, infrastructure like bridges, the automotive sector.
Yeah.
They all heavily rely on fighting corrosion.
And these smart anti-corrosion coatings offer something extra. Yeah, they often work by releasing inhibitors in a controlled way, right where they're needed. Some even have self-healing properties to fix tiny scratches before corrosion can take hold. It really extends the life of materials.
Okay, anti-corrosion leads now. But looking forward, which type is expected to grow the fastest?
That would be the self-cleaning coatings.
Ah, the low-maintenance stream.
Exactly. There's huge demand for surfaces that, well, clean themselves, or at least stay cleaner longer, both for homes and businesses.
What's the tech behind that?
It often involves nanotech. You get hydrophilic surfaces where water sheets off, taking dirt with it, or hydrophobic ones that repel water and grime altogether.
And where are we seeing those used most?
Building facades are a big one, keeping skyscrapers looking clean.
Mhm.
Solar panels to maintain efficiency. Car exteriors, electronic displays to resist smudges. The applications are growing, especially with the increased focus on hygiene these days.
Easy to see the appeal there. Okay, so
Okay.
we know the types. Where are these coatings actually being applied? What are the main application sectors?
The report lists several key areas: building and construction, automotive, electronics, military, medical, and again, an others category.
And based on what we've discussed, I'm guessing building and construction is pretty significant.
You guessed right. It holds the largest market share currently.
Why is that? Just the sheer scale.
Scale is part of it, but also the variety of uses. Self-cleaning glass on buildings, like we mentioned, antimicrobial coatings in hospitals or public transit, and of course, anti-corrosion for infrastructure, bridges, pipelines, you name it.
Plus all the new construction happening, especially in Asia Pacific.
Exactly. All that development in places like China and India provides a massive market for these coatings.
Okay, so building and construction leads. Which application area is growing the fastest?
That would be the automotive sector. It's showing really rapid growth.
Why the surge in automotive?
Several reasons. There's the demand for better protection against scratches, stone chips, corrosion, anything the environment throws at a car. Less maintenance, longer life.
Makes sense.
But there's also a big aesthetic component, particularly for luxury vehicles. People want that flawless, glossy finish, and smart coatings can help maintain it.
So it's practical protection, but also keeping that showroom shine. Okay, let's dig into the market forces a bit more. We know sustainability is a driver. What else is pushing this market forward?
Well, the report flags a couple of major drivers. Firstly, that rising demand from the automotive industry we just touched on. We're seeing increased global vehicle production.
Right, more cars being made.
Means more need for coatings. Simple as that. Industry stats back this up, showing growth in production and sales.
Okay, automotive demand. What's another key driver?
Secondly, the construction industry's growing demand. We mentioned the infrastructure boom. Forecasts, like some projections for India showing over 10% growth in construction, point to a huge need for advanced coatings for all those new buildings, roads, bridges.
Right, so the two biggest application areas are also major drivers of overall market growth. Makes sense. Are there any potential brakes on this growth? Any challenges?
The report does highlight one key restraint: the potential limited availability of specific raw materials.
Supply chain issues?
Potentially. Many of these advanced coatings rely on specialized things like certain nanoparticles or advanced polymers. If those become scarce or more expensive,
That could increase costs and slow things down.
exactly, it could raise production costs, maybe hinder some innovation if manufacturers can't get what they need. Geopolitics and supply chain disruptions could definitely play a role there too.
That's a really important point. The advanced nature makes them potentially vulnerable.
Okay, shifting to the positive side again, what about technology trends? What's new and exciting?
Continuous innovation is key. Formulations, application methods, they're always improving. The report mentions one company, Apex Auto Care, developing a self-healing ceramic coating.
Self-healing, like scratches just disappear.
Pretty much. Minor scratches can apparently repair themselves with a bit of heat, or even just over time at room temperature.
Wow, that's definitely next level stuff. What other trends are shaping the future here? There's a big focus on product innovation from the major players. Lots of R&D investment to make coatings more effective, more reliable, and tailored for very specific uses.
Any examples?
AkzoNobel is mentioned for their powder coatings designed specifically for EV battery systems.
For electric vehicles again. What do those coatings do?
They provide vital electrical insulation, protect against corrosion, which is critical for battery components, and even help dissipate heat, all essential for EV performance and safety.
Fascinating how specialized these are becoming. So who are the big companies competing in this space?
It's a competitive landscape, definitely. You've got big global names and some more specialized regional players. The report lists companies like Jotun, RPM International, Hempel, NEI Corporation, ExxonMobil, PPG, Axalta, and Sherwin-Williams.
A mix of familiar coatings giants and maybe some less-known specialists. Any recent moves from them that highlight these trends?
Yeah, a couple examples are given. ExxonMobil launched a new powder coating range late last year. Interpon D2525 Low E focused on better corrosion resistance and UV protection for industrial use. Okay. And PPG launched a high-performance marine coating, Sigma Shield 8800, back in early 2023, designed for really tough anti-corrosion needs on ships.
So constant development and new product launches seem to be the norm. Now, this report is from 2025, and you mentioned it covers the impact of tariffs. That sounds relevant.
Yes, that's a really important piece of context. The report discusses these Liberation Day tariffs introduced by the U.S. in April 2025. The stated aim was, reducing trade deficits, boosting domestic manufacturing.
And these were significant tariffs.
Quite significant, yes. They varied, but examples include 10% on goods from places like the UK or Australia, but much higher on others, like 34% on many Chinese imports, and 25% on things like steel, aluminum, auto parts.
Okay, those are hefty percentages.
Yeah.
How does that impact sectors that rely heavily on imports, and how does that relate back to smart coatings?
Well, consumer goods sectors felt it immediately. Think apparel, appliances, packaged foods. They often have complex global supply chains heavily involving Asia. So the tariffs meant rising production costs from imported materials or components, potential sourcing delays, and ultimately upward pressure on prices for consumers. Specific examples were like 25% tariffs on clothes and shoes, 20% on appliances.
And given China's role in manufacturing?
Exactly. That amplified the impact. Higher costs for inputs sourced from China, combined with demand fluctuations, meant delays and higher expenses. Smaller brands, especially, felt the pinch.
Okay, I see the general impact. How does this tariff situation specifically hit the smart coatings market? Are the coatings themselves or the raw materials getting tariffed?
The report doesn't detail tariffs on every specific raw material for smart coatings, but we can definitely infer the potential impact. If those specialized nanoparticles or polymers we talked about are imported and face these tariffs,
And the cost of making smart coatings goes up.
precisely, which could mean higher prices for the coatings themselves. That might slow down adoption, particularly in applications where cost is a major factor.
Or maybe it encourages domestic production.
That's the other side of the coin, yes. Tariffs could, over time, incentivize more localized production of these materials or the coatings. It forces companies to reevaluate.
So how are companies adapting? The report mentions strategies.
It does. There's a much bigger emphasis now on really deep market research, understanding supplier networks, assessing tariff risks, analyzing costs, maybe even optimizing product designs to use fewer tariffed components.
Makes sense. Be more strategic.
Right. And we're seeing companies actively restructuring their sourcing. Big names like Nike or IKEA were mentioned as expanding in places like Vietnam, India, Mexico, trying to diversify away from heavily tariffed regions,
Moving production.
or adopting in-market-for-market approaches, producing goods closer to where they'll be sold, plus using AI for better demand forecasting, pushing for more supplier transparency, maybe even redesigning products.
So it sounds like these trade shifts are forcing a major rethink of global supply chains, and the smart coatings industry is right in the middle of navigating that.
Absolutely. How agile and adaptable these coating manufacturers are in response to these dynamics will be really key to their success going forward.
Well, this has been incredibly illuminating, a real deep dive into this smart coatings world. Let's try and summarize the key takeaways from the report.
Sure. So fundamentally, the global smart coating market is growing strongly. We're looking at that 5% annual growth through 2033.
Right.
Right now, in 2025, anti-corrosion coatings are the biggest segment because they're needed everywhere. But the fastest growth is coming from self-cleaning coatings that demand for low maintenance is huge.
And in terms of where they're used, building and construction is the current leader, thanks to all the infrastructure work and diverse applications in buildings.
Exactly. And while automotive and construction demand plus the sustainability focus are driving growth, we do need to keep an eye on potential raw material constraints and, of course, these evolving global trade dynamics like the tariffs we discussed.
Right, those are important caveats. So thinking about all this, the increasing power of these coatings, the shifts in trade, here's something to chew on. How might these smart materials really change how we design, build, and maintain things in the next decade or so?
Hmm.
Could we see applications or even challenges emerging that we haven't even thought of yet?
That's a great final thought. As these coatings get better and cheaper, imagine self-healing roads, buildings that actively clean the air, medical implants that fight infection. The possibilities are vast.
Truly transformative potential.
It really is. It's definitely an area that's going to see a lot more innovation and exploration.
Absolutely. Something for you, the listener, to consider. If this sparked your interest, we definitely encourage you to look deeper into the reports and research out there. Think about what smart coatings could mean for different industries, maybe even your own field. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.